Are you in need of a smile? Today's your lucky day. Follow me into my kitchen. Today, we're going to make spicy corn salad. So wonderful, so tasty, and so easy to make. Poached chicken breast and mole sauce with chocolate. And we end with Gazpacho. It's not Italian, but it's fantastic. And I'm going to share with you the story on how it is that I fell in love with Latino food, especially Mexican food. Come for the recipes. Stay for the story. I think of America, the United States of America, as a huge minestrone soup. There's everything in here. I tried foods that I never thought I would try. I fell in love with flavors which I didn't even know existed. But one of the greatest attractions that I think I have is South American food in general. Mexican, Guatemalan, Brazilian, Argentinian. There's something about Latino food that, I don't know how to explain this. It reminds me a lot of Sicilian food. There's passion, there's fire, there's a purpose, a direction, there's a certain simplicity. Yet, putting these dishes together requires an understanding of the basic dish, of what it is, how to make it. Techniques are simple, but you cannot so much improvise until you truly understand the soul of a dish, and somebody's got to explain it to you. Hola, yo soy el chef Nick Stellino. I know, I sound good in Spanish. But you should know that some of the greatest lessons that I learned them in Spanish. I learned from all my Latino friends who work with me at the restaurants that basically symbolize the rise of my career. I would like to start today's episode with a spectacular recipe inspired by these lessons that I got. Spicy corn salad. Let me show you how to make it. This is a Latino dish. More often than not, I think it would be Mexican inspired, but has a lot of influences from my passion for American barbecue, specifically smoking meats. And one of the things that I decided to do in the salad is to make it simple, with ingredients that you'll find in your local supermarket, and I wanted to have it explosive with flavors. The dressing in itself is the most important part. We start with a little bit of vinegar. And this vinegar, I wanted to find a counterbalance to. In this particular case, I'm going to be using brown sugar. Why brown sugar? Brown sugar has molasses together with the vinegar. The molasses is going to break down, and it's going to involve everything else into the salad. But the dressing is not over yet. Jalapeno, cut very, very thin. Next to the jalapeno, a little bit of parsley, but you can also use mint if you have it available. It really enhances and brings the dish to a whole different flavor. And then here we go with a little bit of tomato sauce. At this point, we mix the ingredients together just in a general way, and then there is the most important addition, which is Nick's Magic Rub. And this is where I say to everybody, America is beautiful. Why? This magic rub is a byproduct of many things. It comes from my passion for barbecue, where I find the spices to be more often than not the ones that we use all the time when we make ribs, when we make brisket. So in this particular case, this mixture is in equal parts salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, and brown sugar. The opposing forces seem to be so totally opposite, but in this particular case, they unite. They bring together a flavor which is unique. Now that we have all these things, the smallest thing that we need to do is just mix all the ingredients so that we have a wonderful base for the salad to go into it. All right, here we are. Let's move on now with the other ingredients. This is an unusual cheese, but for those of you that live in the western part of the United States, it should not be difficult to find. For those of you that have access to Latino groceries, this should not be difficult to find. It's a Mexican cheese, cojita, and I love it. If you don't find this particular cheese, any other cheese that's hard would work great. Another one would be great is queso blanco, which is fairly easy to find, especially for us here in Southern California. Now, to the base, we add a little bit of red peppers, we dice very fine, and a little bit of onions. Nicely chopped. Mix all these ingredients together, and this will welcome for us the salad. The salad is going to be made with corn. You can cook it, you can grill it if you want to. This is a wonderful enhancement, especially now in summertime that the corn is getting at its very best. This point, you want to be attentive and watch this technique. I grab the bowl, I turn it toward me, and then I mix again. Grab, turn, mix. Grab, turn, mix. Why? You want to make sure that all the elements that were part of the dressing that right now are stuck at the bottom of the bowl reincorporate themselves inside the salad. One last thing that I do, and this is just for color, I add some extra chopped parsley that I'm gonna add just to add some green. By the way, if you like to, instead of parsley, you can use cilantro. I like parsley better. That's it. The salad is basically ready. When you make this at home, I would propose that you let this rest for at least a half an hour, 1 hour. All the flavors will come together. Now, let me show you how to plate it. One of the greatest fortunes that I had when I first came to Los Angeles and I started working in the restaurants was to be surrounded by people who really wanted to teach me. Immigrants like me. They were from Latin America, Mexico, Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, San Salvador. I would like to say I invented this, but this is the byproduct of the experience that I had being exposed to other cultures that showed me a better way of doing things. And this is how you make spicy corn salad. Once you understand the solo the dish, then you can start creating from the dish something of your own. Chorizo as a sausage that I use for breakfast, making tamales from scratch. That was for me one of the greatest accomplishments ever. But the mole sauce. Mamma mia, the mole sauce with chocolate in it. That in it, can you imagine that? Chocolate for a sauce you can pour over meat if you want to. Sometimes the easiest things are the most difficult to make, but not if you're watching my show. Today, I'm gonna make you happy. I'm going to show you to make poached chicken breast, perfect technique, by the way, and mole sauce with chocolate. Let me show you how to make it. Chicken with mole sauce was for me one of the most incredible dishes I've ever learned. Once I found out that there is chocolate inside mole, I became super curious. I had to figure out a way on how to do it. I called all my friends. Many of them had recipes that their mom, their grandmas made. And in the process, I developed something on my own. But I wanted to create something that not only has the principal flavors of the mole sauce, that's a signature in itself, but also I wanted to deploy simple, easy to make techniques. And one of the most remarkable techniques is the proper simmering and braising of a chicken breast. What we've done inside the pot, we already placed some fresh chicken stock. I'm gonna bring this to a boil. And then we'll insert the chicken breast in there and I will let it simmer. This seems simple, there's nothing to it. But there is an enormous amount of grace and beauty on how to do this. For example, if you do not have chicken stock, you could do this with plain water. If you have the time, many times I tell my friends that want to listen to my strange techniques to actually take 32 ounces of chicken stock and over medium heat, reduce it down by half. What does it do? It compacts the flavor of the chicken stock. It's as if you're making almost a glace de veau, so to speak. And what happens in this process, the chicken stock is even much more flavorful. But let's assume that you start, like I am doing right now, with basic chicken stock. How do you bring this to a series of flavors that will eventually give this pack of additional impact to the natural taste of the chicken breast without taking over and without ruining the breast? So as the stock is coming to a boil, the first thing that I do is always a little bit of the addition of the Nick Stellino special rub. This is something that came from my days learning how to barbecue. It's a mixture of salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, brown sugar. In this particular case, I also put some chili in it so that we maintain the essence of this. And by the way, this is a basic build in which, as long as you keep all the parts equal to each other, so 1 tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, you can expand it in any direction you want. The addition of the chili powder gives it a little bit of a kick, but that's not all that gives flavor. These are trimming pieces that I've used for making other sauces, and what you see in there is celery, onion, carrot, and a bay leaf. This is very important and truly is taking us back to the days of the old way of making sauces. All of these elements together with the chicken stock are going to create for us a flavor base that will envelope the chicken breast with an additional layer of flavor, but at the same time, it will also enhance it. But what is braising chicken? How do you simmer the chicken into the stock without overcooking it or without drying it out? The biggest mistake that people make is once they bring this to a boil, to basically put the chicken in it and let it cook for 5, 6, 7 minutes. What happens in the boil, the chicken is salted by super hot water. It stiffens up. You harden the texture of the chicken breast. It works against you. Instead, what I like to do is to bring this to a nice rolling boil. And once it reaches the rolling boil, we add a little bit more of my rub, just to give it a layer. Some more rub goes into the stock, and now watch this. Very simply, place it in. I let it be. I turn it from one side to the next. Already you see it's starting to change the color. This is super hot in there. We place the cover and we move it aside. We are going to let that sit by itself for about 15 to 18 minutes. When we take it out, we'll make sure that the interior temperature is at least 160. While this is taking place, let me show you how to make the mole sauce. We clean up our station. You always have to do that. Wash my hands. Always do that when you work with raw chicken. And now I'm gonna make the mole sauce. We got the oil in the pan, and it's getting nice and hot. And let's get started with the sofrito. I'm gonna treat this as a classical sauce. So the first thing we're gonna do is carrots. Oh, my English, sticking on vacation. Onions and celery. This you see me do tons of times. To this we're gonna add some chopped garlic. Chopped garlic is important because I want the sauce to cook fairly quickly. And also I want for all the ingredients to amalgamate. At this point, we're gonna get it moving into the oil until it starts to sizzle a little bit. I have another surprise addition, chopped bacon. I love it. You don't need to do this. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it's even typical to do in Latino cooking, but I find that it adds an enormous amount of flavor to the sauce. And here we go with the dominant flavors. A little bit of chopped jalapeno pepper. The reason why I chop everything so fine is because I'm gonna treat the sauce as a homemade sauce. I will not strain it, degrease it. I'll do it exactly as a mom would make it for their children at home. And one of the things that I heard all the time when I ask my friends to give me some hints on how to make it perfect, they always mention the fact that they love to bite into the small tidbits that are included into the sauce. Now here there are two great personalities. We have cinnamon and cumin. These two elements together is the first time ever that I have used them. So this was taught to me. It is not a Sicilian tradition, it's not an Italian tradition, but these particular spices in this sequence really are at the key of this base. A little bit of dry oregano, and next to the oregano, be careful with this. This is chili powder, so a pinch will make you happy. This will not make you cry, but will make you remember me. And if you cook for others, remember this. Be fully aware of what the toleration of heat is. To make something that only tastes good to you, what's the fun of eating alone? You get me? So, well, I learned this. My wife does not have a high tolerance to overly spicy things. I wish you could actually right now smell this because this is, wow, beautiful. Next addition is unexpected, and it's tequila. Why? Well, I figure we're gonna make a Mexican sauce, a Spanish sauce, a Latino sauce. You gotta put tequila in there. That's the only thing. I mean, it would not have been right if I put marsala. That doesn't work. I mean, maybe it does work, but in this case, I wanted to do it right. Now here we go with the other additions. Some tomato sauce. The next addition is chicken stock. Once it gets to this point, you want to bring it to a boil. Once the sauce reaches a boil, you want to let it simmer for a good 30-35 minutes, especially when you have this quantity. If you're moving it really quickly, you want to serve this right away, then you need to think of this almost as a pan sauce. You would use less tomato sauce, less chicken stock, you make it reduce quicker. But this way, the flavors will come out even better. And the slow resolve, the slow maturity that comes from the sauce going a little bit at a time, that's exactly what we're looking for. And there's one more addition, and I'm not gonna do it until it gets to the right consistency. Well, the sauce is reduced to the consistency that I want. Always at this point, taste it and adjust it according to salt, pepper, and sugar, depending on what it is that you like. But the addition is coming up now, and you're gonna love it. Cocoa powder, chocolate. The European made a whole industry out of sweets, but long before these recipes were introduced to Europe, the people here in America, throughout Mexico, Guatemala, San Salvador, already were using chocolate in their food. And this is what makes mole. This is bitter chocolate powder. Do not use sweet. You can if you want to, but I think it would be a bit more of an exaggeration. This is something that I'm accustomed also to use in several Sicilian dishes. And what you want to do at this point, you want to stir. You have a very gentle heat. I think we could take a little bit more powder. There we are. And the bitterness of the cocoa powder is not going to work against you. It's going to mellow down all the other ingredients, and it's going to give a finish to the sauce that's completely unique. To most untrained eye, this looks already as a chocolate sauce, but it does not have the sweetness of the chocolate sauce. Rather, it has a balance. It opened up, and it is magical. You can do this with grilled fish. You can do it with poached chicken. You can do this with a steak. There are no limitation on what you can use this particular sauce. But once you learn how to make this, it's going to be one of the greatest days of your life. Well, the sauce is ready. The chicken is ready. Well, now we're ready to plate. The chicken is cooked at 160 in the middle. Now the chicken is ready to be taken out. And what I like to do before we serve it, I like to slice it. I mean, feel how nice and tender this still is. It's just absolutely beautiful. And look at the other side. This is where we put the flavor in. Then remember, everything basically got on top of it. It's just splendid. So let me get this one started. Look at the inside, the juice is still. Look how beautiful this is. Let me get the slices nice and going so you can have them exactly the way that we want. So. Look how hot it is. Look how juicy, how tender. This is absolutely beautiful. We have the perfect slices. They're super, super tender. You can see the juices in here. I mean, this to me was an astonishing discovery. This to me makes a wonderful portion. This, you could make a whole different portion. So let's put this aside for right now, and then I'm gonna show you exactly how to plate it. This dish will forever be one of my favorite ones because I remember how excited I was when I talked to my friends who were from Mexico, and they told me that their mom and their grandma used to make a dish with chicken that featured chocolate. This a beautiful combination of flavors, of element. As you cut through it, you will taste the sauce underneath. Always have extra sauce on the side because this is full of love, full of flavor. This is not Italian, but I am so glad that I have great friends who taught me how to make it because this is now one of my favorite things ever. And for a Sicilian boy to be able to cook like this, well, that is a gift from God. And this is how you make poached chicken with mole sauce. But if you're lucky enough to have a friend who's Mexican and invites you to their house and you get to taste their mom's food, there is, in my opinion, a huge impact of flavor, elegance, and simplicity, something that truly reminds me a great deal of the fabulousness of Italian food, Sicilian food, where simple ingredients are put together and they create a flavor of their own. It is not a Sicilian dish, so let's not argue about it, but it's a dish that inspired me. A chilled soup called Gazpacho. Let me show you how to make it. So, if you were born in Sicily like me, what is the one thing that you always want? Tomatoes. You want them in winter, you want them in spring, you want them in summer, you want them in fall. And you always invent new ways on how to make something special happen. This particular soup is not Sicilian. I will lie to you if I tell you that we used to make this in Sicily. It's very popular in Spain, and I truly did not discover it until I came here to the United States. It's called Gazpacho. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But what I found in it is a wonderful articulation of thoughts and ideas on how certain elements can be brought together and really create a spectacular presence. What we have done, we've taken a can of Italian San Marzano tomatoes, and we have placed it into the blender, and we really emulsified it down to a wonderful liquid form. And here it is. I'm going to add this. This is the base of our sauce. But by itself, it's nothing more than just tomato juice. How do we turn this into something spectacular? First thing we're gonna do is a little bit of red wine vinegar. Why red? Because the first time that I made this soup, I had the vinegar on hand and it was red. And ever since, I always play with it. Does it have to be red? No, you can use red as well as white balsamic. You can also use a balsamic vinegar itself. It'll just deepen and darken the color of this. But what the vinegar does, it puts the yin to the yang. In other words, we have the sweetness of the tomatoes that needs to have something that articulates it to the other side. Speaking of that, here's the Nick Stellino special rub. Onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, brown sugar, and paprika. Why is this combination of flavors so interesting to us? All of these flavors will eventually mold into the structure of all the other ingredients that we're going to add. Some of them will extract some water, which will reincorporate itself into the soup, giving us a wonderful personality. But the other part that I like is the divisive and yet combining essence of this dichotomy of opposites. The salt and the pepper against the brown sugar suddenly find themselves in the company of their best friends. So here we put now a little bit of yellow bell peppers. Why yellow bell peppers? I like them. This is Persian cucumber. The reason why I like Persian cucumber is first because it has a spectacular color. Second is not as watery as regular cucumbers and also has a flavor to it that I think is superior. Whatever it is that they do in Persia to these cucumbers, they really know what they're doing. Then we go again with some green bell pepper. And this is my favorite of all times. This is green onions. Why are they so spectacular? Why are they so important? Green onions has a different texture from white onion, and yet in making all of this happen, it really brings out an excellent element because not only I use the green onions, but I also use a little touch of the white onions. Chopped, very finely chopped. This is exactly what we want to do. At this point, we're pretty much done with most of the flavoring, but one of the things that I like to do is add some water. Why am I adding water? Look at the texture of what this is. I want this to be not so thick that it's so dense. Also, if you don't want to add water, you still wanted to put some extra flavor, think of spicy tomato sauce, the one that they used to make drinks with. That would be a wonderful way to add liquidity and also infuse it with additional flavors. Now, the most important part, chopped garlic. Why chopped and not sliced? Well, you want this to disappear in it. You want this to give really the flavor of garlic to the whole process, and at the same time, you do not want to be overtaken by it. Garlic is a great friend, but sometimes it overtakes us completely. That's it. For this soup to be ready, we need to let it sit for a few hours. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna bring it into the refrigerator, let it chill for a few hours, and then I'll show you to plate. This gazpacho, as far as I'm concerned, has the wonderful elements of a foreign dish that became my friend. But also it represents in a most significant way what is that us as human beings can do when we open up our mind and we realize that the most beautiful things about us are not just what is that we think about, what is we create on our own, but what is that we learn from others. One last thing that you don't need to do, but I love to do it, is chives. Why chives? L'erba cipollina, as we call it in Italian, adds one more splendid element of flavor to all of this. And this is how you make gazpacho, Stellino style. But the thing that I love the most is this opportunity that I've had to come to a country where everything is new to me. and where everything is so exciting, so beautiful, and this willfulness to discover and to learn. But the flavor, and how this flavor is so distinct, so powerful, so clear, that was, for me, one of the greatest discoveries ever. What can I tell you? Sometime when you least expect it, you fall in love. And that's what happened to me in Mexican food.
Oh, okay, give me a little Spanish welcome if you know anything like hola.
And then be like,
Hola, bienvenido. Ahora nosotros cocinamos un plato muy gustoso. Hoy sí, yo soy muy guapo. Bienvenido. Venite conmigo, entra a mi cocina. Ahora nosotros preparamos... Hola, it's a special show. All about Italian food. No, come sto Italian food? Tamasa, non Italian. What the hell am I talking about? Hola, bienvenido in cucina. Today we are going to make